afternoon. We're going to call the Wednesday, July 31st, 2019 LaPorte County Redevelopment Commission meeting to order. If everybody would please stand for the pledge. Mr. Molnauer, lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Mary Jane.
Randy Novak.
Present.
Joe Core.
Present.
Dr. Cora. Terry Larson.
Present.
Scott Cooley. Michael Mollenauer.
Present.
Michael Rosenbaum.
Present.
Ron Dispense. Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, but I'd like to add the resolution of LaPorte County Redevelopment Commission supporting development, redevelopment, acquisition, and repurposing of certain property for within the Kingsbury Industrial Park Economic Development Area, KIP.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions on the agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to speak? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Haw. I'm with Radke Engineering and Surveying. Here this afternoon as the District Engineer for 39 North Conservancy District. There is an item later on the agenda, the water tower project for 39 North Conservancy District. Matt's going to talk about that, but he and I hadn't had a chance to talk this last couple of weeks with regard to developments from the district, so I thought I'd present them to you today.
Great.
At the last board meeting of the 39 North Conservancy District, Radke Engineering presented a feasibility study for the water tower along with tentative budget numbers for the water tower project on 39 North. I have copies of that for all the members of the commission this evening. As well, the board authorized the attorney, also Shaw, to contact a governmental how did we put it? Governmental relations firm to aid us in locating sources of potential funding for the water tower. So at the meeting before last, I think we presented to the commission that we were planning to pursue this water tower project. We are making concrete steps to do so, and I'm open to any questions that you might have with regard to any contents of the report. I'll bring copies up there.
Thank you.
I do have a quick question. Where is the city of LaPorte in their involvement on this?
As it stands now, the city of LaPorte is not involved in this. Per conversations that we've had, that is between Radke and Todd Taylor, the city will not be withdrawing water from this tower, and that's the way the report is written. The budgeting reflects that as well. We don't have any input from the city at this point with regard to funding. That isn't to say that we're closing the door on that at all, of course. Talks are very early at this point, and there's not to say that we aren't open to additional funds. But at this point, we do not have any input from the city on this.
Just a quick question from a pressure standpoint, Randy. I'll ask you this because you asked the question last few meetings. Wouldn't it kind of make sense that that tower would help pressurize that system that the city does own out in that area now that currently don't have the right pressures? Wasn't that the way it was explained to us before?
So how are you going to keep the tower from lack of a better term, commingling with city water?
That's a very good point. And it's not something that we've had a conversation about yet.
So, I mean, at what point would, theoretically, you put a big check valve in the line that's going to stop that water from going the other way?
If it was, in fact, an absolute that the city would not be withdrawing from this tower, and that's by no means decided, then yes, that is exactly what we would have to do. If only to prevent the pressure that's going to be entering into our system from the water tower from pushing the water back into the city system.
Not necessarily push the monetary responsibility off to them, but wouldn't it make sense to have a meeting with this group in the city to find out what really needs to happen on that end?
Very much so, yes.
You're going to fill it with city water, correct?
Yes.
Just a suggestion.
I guess my concern is that the water tower, when it's erected, eliminates a lot of the issues that we see in the area. I just want to make sure all the issues are taken care of. Both ways. I don't care who owns it, who has it, what it is, that it solves all the issues.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. We do have a basis of design in the report. The water tower as it is will handle a concurrent commercial/industrial fire and a residential fire if they happen at the same time. That's equivalent to about 420,000 gallons. We're budgeting out for a 500,000 gallon tank. That's the full flow of the fire protection system for an industrial facility, 2,500 gallons per minute for 2 hours, plus a home at 1,000 gallons per minute for 2 hours. These are numbers that were provided to us.
1,000 gallons a minute.
Yeah. Obviously, that's a lot.
We got trucks that pump 2,000 gallons a minute, one truck. So anyway, go ahead, keep going.
So that's what it's budgeted for. That's where 420,000 gallons comes from, and the next size up is 500,000 gallons.
What size building is that calculation based on?
Which number?
The flow you're talking about.
These are not based on any particular square footage. These are based on a use rather than size.
A fire situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Turn your mic on. Your microphone.
And that's not based on a particular size of building?
No.
Okay.
So, I guess where would you come up with your 2,500 gallons a minute?
It's based on the required fire flow for the newest industrial facility that we have in the district.
Okay, so it's based off of the buildings that are out there currently?
Yes.
Okay, so right, that answered the question.
I'm sorry, I guess I wasn't clear.
That answered the question.
Was the original tower larger than this? I thought it was 1 million gallon.
No, the original tower that was planned for back in 1994 from the inception of the site was 500,000.
Thank you.
We were potentially pricing out other options up to a 750,000 gallon tank, but without additional funding, we just don't see the need for that within the district alone.
Okay, just one last question. So in this particular area, is there room for expansion? This new tower isn't just to take care of what we have out there, is it?
No, what it does is further pressurize the system and provide fire protection, guaranteed fire protection for an industrial or home fire, which is something our current system is not capable of doing.
And answer your question, Mr. Corr, because there are additional parcels, commercially zoned, industrial zone parcels available for development, but the commission has made clear to the 39 North Conservancy District that it will not support additional water taps into the system until there is this upgrade with a water tower.
I get it now.
Okay, very good. But also, the way I took Joe's question is this tower designed so that if this park is fully developed, this tower can handle everything that's going to be there. This park, because this is what the Conservatory District represents.
Yes.
So this tower meets all your future expansion.
Well, there are multiple ways to look at that. The current water that the district can provide on a average daily use basis is more than sufficient to serve the entirety of the district if it was all.
As long as there's no fires or emergencies.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So what the tower will do is provide emergency flow for, as I said, one industrial fire with a concurrent residential fire. That's all it will do. So if there are 2 industrial fires, then we have an issue.
Flip a coin.
Yeah.
Well, I get back to the question. I guess I'm still not square on this. If with the development you had a 500,000 square foot building, or maybe even a 1 million square foot building, are you saying this would be sufficient for that?
I'm not. All I'm saying is that the 2,500 gallons per minute meets the requirements for the largest currently used industrial site in the district.
So there's no calculation yet to say the maximum size building that can be developed. If you were to go with this water tower, there's nothing set yet that would establish a maximum square footage for a single building in the park.
That is correct. There is not any
At some
kind of
point,
maximum
is some
size.
point, will there be?
It's a question that should be asked.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments? So this is just you're just looking for funds to see if this is viable.
Yes, that's the point of it. It's just to indicate that the project is feasible. We have the land, we have the infrastructure to get to the project. It is a feasible project. We just need the funding to go forward.
Does the district have the funds to float a bond for this?
You're going after grants, aren't you?
Yes, that's correct. Right now, the district board has indicated it is disinclined to bond for any portion of this. We've got a mix of both residential and industrial owners out there. We've just now paid off the bond, finally, after 20 years, and so there's some real reluctance to incur additional debt. However, the district board, as Jeff indicated, did agree to retain the services of 1816 Incorporated, governmental relations firm in Indianapolis, to look at potential grant sources. Is there a way, either through some of the different sources that are out there, even a direct appropriation, is there some way that we could fund this water tower? And they're estimating, I think it's a $2 million cost for the...
Roughly.
So this gives you a start for that process,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
That's what
it
you're
gives us,
doing?
it's a talking point.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this is
Understood.
not a preliminary engineering
Understood.
study. We
Yeah.
have to go into more depth.
Could you also send me how you came up with the 25, or where you're getting the information on the 2,500 gallons per minute based on what's there, and 1,000 gallons per minute on a house fire? Can you give me that?
I guess you could say it's hearsay. It's based on the fire flow requirements for the new building that was installed and a residential.
And where did you get that?
Just rule of thumb. There is no draw from this.
So there's no like NFPA document or something that
I'm
says
certain that there is.
this-
We
right.
did
Okay,
not-
you
we
did
did not go to
okay.
that depth.
All right. Okay.
No.
Well, we're probably
We haven't got that far.
Well, I hear you, but as we pitch this downstate, we're going to need something firm
You
like
got
that.
it.
So,
You're absolutely right. This,
Well, before you pitch it back here, it better have that.
It's not a
right.
I'm simply
No,
updating.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
but these are good questions, and frankly, the
Yeah.
questions they're going to
Right.
get from the grant funders are as equally tougher. So this is good. This is good practice for Jeff and the firm. Okay.
So good luck trying to get your grants, and if you get your grants, come back and say hi to us.
Some of your figures, I think, on your rule of thumb, I think you need a bigger thumb. A little bit bigger thumb on some of those things. So, no, but I think it's a great start. So,
All right. Thank you for your
we're
time.
open. Thank you. Any other public comments? Communications.
Communications, you've had 4 this month. You've had the Chicago, South Shore, and South Bend Railroad inquired about the status of the Construction Rail Committee RFP, and Matt responded to that. We had a communication from RQAW via the county planner about the RQAW invoices, which we responded to. And I did include in your packets the newspaper article on the North Point Dollar General announcement. And then the last is Radke Engineering made a request for the RDC Commission agendas. And that is your communications for the month.
Thank you very much. Those are on the back sheet of your agenda, just so anybody's looking for. Minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from last month's meeting?
Motion to approve.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Next item is the treasurer's report. Mary Jane?
The treasurer's report is as follows. The KIDC TIF had a 2019 spring settlement in the amount of $55,823.12. Your total balance in that fund is $155,158.22. In the I-94 421 TIF, you had a spring settlement of $162,063.43, and your account balance is $180,896.74. In your 39 North TIF, you received a spring settlement amount of $8,720.78. Your balance in that account is $62,059.72. These balances include all your expenses as of June 30th. And that's the end of the report.
Thank you. What's your pleasure on the treasurer's report?
Motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. For the claims docket, for the KIDC TIF, we have Thomas & Associates for $611, LaPorte Herald Argus for legal notices, $23.84, MCR Partners, July Professional Services in the amount of $3,000. Freeman & Associates, July 19th, legal service, $1,500. Freeman & Associates, June 19, legal services, $501. Barnes & Thornburg, May, legal services, $841.50. Barnes & Thornburg, April, legal services in the amount of $292.50, for a total claims out of that TIF in the amount of $6,769.84.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
Seconded by multiples. Is there any question regarding the KIDC TIF? All those in favor of paying those bills, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Next item is US 421 TIF 1. Is that correct, Mary Jane? Got a number 1 there. Thomas & Associates, June 19, professional services in the amount of $611. News Dispatch legal notice publication, $23.84. MCR Partners, July professional services, $2,000. The Antero Group utility design review in the amount of $3,000. Weaver Consultants Group easement acquisition in the amount of $6,141.90, for a total of $11,776.74. What's your pleasure?
Motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the question. I have a question. Weaver Consultants. Is this still for are we still?
The bill from Weaver is resulting in is a result of the property acquisition process that they undertook to get the utility rights of way of 421 and I-4. So they're owed the money. The other thing is the Antero Group also provided the professional services to do QA/QC for the projects, the water and the sanitary.
All right.
So,
but we are on a hard stop.
This is a residual from, hey, you're already halfway
Right.
done.
I get that.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, sir.
But I mean, they're out there, not out there.
No one's out there doing
We're not
anything.
racking up any more bills.
No.
I know we received
Yes.
one this last couple weeks ago, but
In fact, we did, and we had a conversation about that, and there's some discussion that will be had regarding that invoice, and in direct terms to what was the contracted and authorized activities.
right.
Sometimes people like to be extra helpful
So we did put Weaver Bowles on hold, right? Weaver?
until this.
Yeah.
Correct. Everybody else is hold up.
Sounds good. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Next item is the 39 North MCR Partners, July, $1,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Old business, Construction Rail Planning Committee update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On June 26, prior to the last redevelopment commission meeting, the rail committee got together and discussed a couple of items. And at that meeting was it extended an invitation to and was participated by Matt Sultanovitz, who's the regional representative from the IEDC. And I wanted Mr. Sultanovitz to hear firsthand some of the thoughts and ideas of what the rail committee has been going through with regard to due diligence, and also wanted him to see exactly the level of activity that has been undertaken by Mr. Carroll at JBC Rail, as well as Mr. Limborg at his facility at Kingsbury Elevator. So Matt was able to see firsthand the process, the progress that has been occurred. At that meeting, there were some suggestions made by the rail committee to include an additional documentation suggested in a request for funding sent to the IDC and Mr. Schellinger, which was included. I just recently copied you all today on that communication. I know that the chairman, as is usual, along with the commission president and their attorneys respectively, are included in that communication. So just to summarize, they said, how are you marketing the thing? Well, here's how we're marketing the thing. Who's paying for what and how does it work? JBC Rail has gone through the process, identified an easement, has identified cost, received bids for that connection that's to be made from CSX into our rail. Same is true, and that's along the same lines of the process. I'll be having another rail committee meeting, probably before the next redevelopment commission meeting, or somewhere thereabouts, to discuss the very same process and property procurement issues with regard to the CN connection and making that through Limborg's property directly to and into our rail. And that's the update for the rail planning committee.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, so we have an official grant down at Schillinger's office.
Yeah.
For the possible switch in the connection.
For the connection.
Okay.
I gave them the information and to see. Well, I left it open to both. There's a financial need on both ends.
Good idea.
I'm not the arbiter of who goes first, but I think in that letter and my communications with both entities, CN and CSX, I said, well, there's only so much money, so here's where we're at. And so I left it for interpretation by the state and the IDC, which one, how it works. The thought is to have that funding available and ready to go when of course it happens.
Great.
Very good. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Next item is the 421 I-94 TIF project update. Matt Rear.
As I mentioned, the consulting consortium that was amassed to do some of the work is finalizing, so we're pretty much done with all that. There's some outstanding state permit items that are necessary, and from the technical standpoint, that's where we're at. I mean, I think the commissioners were able to see what would be potentially available in a TIF district. Let's say you got a flat $100,000 with the existing. Without doing the math standing here, I don't know if it gets you to 4. It doesn't get. I can tell you what, it does not get you to 4.4 million. Probably doesn't get you to 2.2 million. With that being said, there was a request made by the developers for the site and to reach out to the respective national elected officials, Wisklaski, Young, and Braun, with regard to our preferred method of communication with the underlying pipe owner. In comparison to the pipe owner's preferred method of communication, or lack thereof, with the developer. And that's a polite way of saying the developer was essentially told to let me just say it this way. There wasn't a high level of interest by the pipeline company to solve or change any issue other than the developer writing a check for $5 million. So that's not news here. So there was a request, and I drafted a memo, ran it by legal, and I need the authorization of this body to send that out. And the letter outlines the process with regard to creating the TIF area, the efforts to create growth and development on the south side, the partnership with the City of Michigan City Water and Sanitary, and the fact that we have a private sector developer that's trying to do a development. What we want is that, our hopes are that the federal, the senators and the Congressman Wisloski will utilize their contacts in the pipeline world to have a more direct conversation about our challenges with doing a development, and that the pipeline issue is something that we need to solve, or we will not have, we'll have a challenge doing development. So that's why we asked for their help. It's not that we couldn't do it right. It's pipelines are, that pipeline runs across the country and across the state. So what better way to do this than bring this from
To follow up on what Matt has indicated, because the pipelines are interstate, they're regulated at the federal level, and so even state officials are not going to have much stick with the pipeline firms. I mean, we need our federal officials weighing in to get their attention, and so that's why the resolution's in front of me.
If we got a problem with them, everybody else along that pipeline's got a problem. You know what I mean? They can't be just...
Yeah, I would think that there's some common challenges in other jurisdictions that we all may be able to be helpful to the pipeline people to get solved. Right. And if we're the catalytic cause, well then so much the better. But you know, our challenge is what's going on at the interchange.
Do you need a letter? Authorize motion to authorize a letter?
Subject to attorney final review, right. That would be great.
Please.
I mean,
I'll make that
subject
motion.
to the attorney and the president.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah. I mean, I'll send it to everybody. It's draft.
Right. Everybody can see it before we start.
Okay, good.
All right.
Now, real quick, the importance of what you're talking about, and Shaw, what you just mentioned, keep in contact, because there's at least, what I know of, probably 150, 200 acres sitting out there this pipeline goes through.
Yes.
In other areas. And
yes.
we're all stopped dead in the water. Yeah. Not just your project, all of us are. So it's very important, and unfortunately it's the same pipeline that ends up in the city or by the Michigan City Airport.
Yes,
so for us, it's a real problem. Mm-hmm. So
with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to our friendly developer to talk about where they stand as of today with their progress or lack thereof. With the pipeline, that I think is more positive in nature. So
I mean, Matt basically summed it up. What I did was the lack of response for the pipeline has been terrible. So I reached out to Wisloski's office. If you don't mind, I can approach and show you what I sent. And the back page is then a response from his office.
It is a response?
Yeah, a response from his office, and she responded almost immediately.
All right, good, cool.
And it basically just sums up everything. Hey, look, our project is a yeah, it's good for the project, but it's a catalyst to getting development, jobs, taxes to the south side of 94. And she responded very, very quickly. And we're hoping maybe they can get a little bit of traction, because again, every time I've talked to the pipeline people, it just seems like they just want this to go away. I mean, the guys even mentioned on the phone, it's like, God, I don't want to deal with all this paperwork. I mean, it's just an ignorant statement to make to me. So that's where it's been left. And so we're hoping if we get a little political pressure on those guys, they'll start acting like a better neighbor. Right. Because you're right, it goes through a good part of the south side there, and it'll screw everything up.
It goes through the south side, but it goes all the way through LaPorte County. I mean, it goes, like you said,
it goes all the way through the airport property, right by the airport.
And then right out the other side.
Right, and there's other property for development in that same area. That pipe goes right through those development areas.
Exactly.
So what we're talking about here is an area where we have TIFs established that are probably going to be useless unless we can figure out what to do with the pipe. If we can't make you successful,
yep.
Now where are we going to go with the rest of this development?
Exactly correct. And then the fact that they won't even provide us with infrastructure data of the pipes, the integrity of the pipe. Then we can bring it to an engineer, say, hey, well, let's bridge over this pipe so it's not, we're not going to affect it. And they won't even provide us that data. They won't provide us anything, just saying no. And that's just not right, because they gotta be a better neighbor. Of course, we understand the pipeline's gotta be protected, but, they've gotta be reasonable to work with.
Well, I'm real happy that you and Matt are working together on this, and Matt, I'm very happy, and Shaw, that you stay involved with this and see what we need to do. If you need support somehow, you gotta tell us,
Thank you so much.
An important thing.
And I'll be back to report to you every single month with updates and everything.
We want you to start.
Hey, believe me,
We got a sewer project design ready to put water in sewer right by you. So
thank you so much. Appreciate
Can I get a motion to authorize the drafting of this letter? We'll send it out to everybody for review, but at least if the letter's done prior to the next meeting, we can go ahead and send it. We'll send it out to everybody. If you got an issue with the letter, respond quickly, so that if we don't hear from you, it's going out. So
yeah, and we're suggesting we focus on the federal representatives. I see you copied the state.
Right.
And we've got a lot of asks into our state reps, and frankly, we didn't want to hit them with this because they've got no stick, nor does state government with the pipeline companies. It needs to be the federal representatives, the members of the House, the members of the Senate, and sometimes a well-framed letter coming from a U.S. Senator or a member of Congress is about the only thing that's going to get action out of one of these pipeline firms. So.
I'm agreeable with you. Absolutely.
too bad we didn't have Joe in there.
yeah. All right. Was that a motion?
I made that motion, yes, Mr. President.
And then I second it.
Motion and a second. Is there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Next item, C, 39 North Water Tower, Matt Reardon.
Before we roll on, I sent you guys a copy of that letter. Essentially, Liz Johnson responded on behalf of the Congressman's office and said, hey, I appreciate your position. How about if we can get the jurisdiction to make a request? And that's what the essence of that letter is. They took the factual information provided by the developer and put it in a letter and said, hi, Pete, we need help. Here's why. Here's what's been spent. Here's what we've done. Same thing with Senator Braun. Same thing with Senator Young. We'll go to them. So you'll have that. But
Good. Thank you.
39 North Water Tower. So as we had mentioned, I'm glad that representatives from the district are here, that we're at a fundamental standoff as to who and how gets paid for. As Sean and I had talked, and he put on his Conservancy District hat for a moment, said that his organization was going to meet, caucus, and talk about, do we want to do this and how can we get it funded? And that's where they're at. So I'm glad we had that reported out. I'll continue my discussions with the city, the water provider, and I think Jeff kind of hit that nail on the head. They're open to some suggestion. I think we're at suggestion. We probably need to meet. Not probably. We need to meet. And to sit down and talk about how this would work. And honestly, in this instance, we're the intermediary as an organization here. Without ample amount of TIF money or a planned project, we wouldn't have any to pledge to the effort. But we're certainly supportive of the opportunity for growth, right? Which is why we created the area. So.
And just a couple other things. I've made it clear to the Conservancy District Board, it's not as if redevelopment is a deep pocket. You see the amount that's there in terms of what's in the 39 North TIF account. There's nothing to be able to underwrite this, and they get it. I should also note too, and the district has had a wonderful working relationship with the city of LaPorte for the 25 years it's been in existence. I mean, we first established it in 1994. So it's not as if, and I don't think Jeff wants to convey that the city is not supportive of any efforts here. It's just in terms of their having money to commit to this. I mean, they're well strapped like other small government entities at this point, and so it appears the district, as I said, authorized the engagement of a really experienced governmental relations firm, 1816 Incorporated, out of Indianapolis, to scout out prospective sources. We've maintained to the district that the redevelopment is very supportive, obviously wants to enhance development prospects in the district, but we're going to have to go out and get a serious look at what potential sources are out there, and 1816 is pretty good at knowing where the money's. They know where the bones are buried, and if there is something there. Interestingly enough, the the legislature just passed a brand new set of legislation in terms of funding repair of water systems around the state. So we're going to take a look at that. I think it's Senate Enrolled Act 1427 or something. And I think that there is a couple of different options that these consultants can look at, but we'll keep everybody informed of what the status is on that.
Great.
With this situation we got with the water tower, does that prohibit us from doing any more expansion out there at this point? I mean, I don't want to throw a...
Not only if it's simply a sewer request, I mean, we're able to service that, and in fact, I think there have been a couple of requests down near US 20 and 39 where that won't prohibit that, and the district can be supportive of that. But what has been conveyed to us clearly, and I've related to the district board, is there is a level of at which that for future fire suppression, for appropriate activity, you got to have water pressure at a certain level. And there is a concern under the current arrangement, and so that's why the district is moving headlong into a search for funding to get this water tower.
Great.
Got it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, before I move on to new business, Mr. Rodriguez was at one of the businesses out of Kingsbury, and as part of his role in trying to figure out what exactly, how to and when to do this rural broadband expansion, he found out some interesting information that, and come on up, Tony, if you want to reference that, but I think we touched on this briefly before. I said, Kingsbury is like a lot of things. We need this rail connections. We're fortunate to have water and sewer, but we don't have a critical infrastructure in fiber and access to it. So, I mean, who built a manufacturing company in a place where you can't utilize your computer systems fully? You don't, is the answer. So, go ahead, Tony.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Tony Rodriguez, Director of the Office of Community and Economic Development. We, as part of a business retention expansion outreach program with Mr. Mike Ryle with the LaPorte Economic Advancement Partnership, we're doing coordinated visits, and we were we had arranged the meeting with the larger processing company that employs just slightly less than 100 people at an average wage of right around $80,000 a year. So the significant economic impact of this type of a company is who we need to be listening to very closely, how things are going, what's prohibiting your expansion at this location, what can we do to be a responsive community and assisting your growth. And they were not hesitant to mention right away to us, both in writing and verbally in the meeting. And it was the tenor of the meeting was extremely good because they were very pleased that we were present, hearing and having this discussion. But it was the two primary, and that's all they brought forth, was the two objectives, which was one, a rail connection at the facility, and secondly, they currently have a wireless carrier that is a solution for broadband, but it's not a symmetrical connection, and you start to get into the details. Without a fiber optic connection, you don't have the symmetry to have equal speeds both up and down, and they're the kind of company that they are. Their single largest customer was the city of Chicago. They're doing a lot of technical data transfer, and it's not meeting their needs, so they put those two objectives right in our lap. And so it was important, I thought, to report back. I'm sure if we went down the street a little ways to the next manufacturer, we're going to hear very similar things. So the topics that you're addressing right now are front and center and very closely being watched by the tenants within the Kingsbury Industrial Park. And I'm excited about the progress being made. That is allowed me the ability to respond immediately to this manufacturer, and they were glad to hear it. However, as we all know, it can't come soon enough. But I applaud the efforts to date.
We should probably note, the members of the commission need to know that the Office of Community and Economic Development under Tony's effort and the task force has submitted the 2 applications for these rural broadband grants, and hopefully we're going to be hearing soon on that. So you may want to...
I should have included that this first round of funding, which is rural broadband connectivity, and the governor's attempt to get connectivity to the rural reaches of the state of Indiana. This first round was unserved, and it was residential only. It would allow the 2 petitions that we have will open up fiber optic connectivity to about 520 residential homes, but would give us the opportunity to get past some industrial areas and take care of some middle mile activity. Very helpful. But those, unfortunately, it was supposed to come end of July, and we've had numerous folks petitioning, calling. I was in communication with Senator Bohacek this morning, who reported back they're still toiling over some challenges, some internal. They're trying to maximize the amount of grant money they get out there, and it's going to be, it sounds like another week, possibly 2 yet, but we're working hard on that side to get some grant dollars into fiber optic.
Tony, where's the closest fiber to KIP?
Great question. I don't have the map, but I've already been in communication with both Comcast and a local fiber carrier, both putting together a cost estimate of what it's going to take to get to the park with fiber. And those numbers are, I've heard a verbal preliminary number, and it's not an insurmountable amount. By next meeting, I'd be able to have a full report on the cost estimates.
Great. That's great that you've done that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
Mr. Chairman, we were talking about that. Is to figure out what it costs. Let's just get this over with. We can do it as part of the grant. Let's do it. If we can figure out how to use some of the TIF money to do it, let's do it. It's necessary. And furthermore, if there's continued activity on the rail side, we need to do it.
That gives us great possibilities with our investors too.
No doubt.
If they can hear that kind of talk coming out of economic development guy, instead of having to say, well, we haven't gotten a price yet, we don't know what it costs, it's somewhere in LaPorte, we don't have a clue. So it's very positive what you're doing, and that's exactly what it takes to get these people to come to town. So
Definitely. Thank you. Under new business, we have consider LPCRDC joining Redevelopment Association of Indiana.
Did I say that?
I believe everybody.
I think it's a membership organization. We recommended
I believe it's $25 the first year or something.
So,
how much is it really?
You get a magazine with that?
you do.
$25.
One subscription. That's it.
For the first year, it's $25 for new members.
What's the cost every year after that?
$125, but there's no limit on the number of individuals from the same organization or local unit of government or company who can be considered a redevelopment association member. So for example, all 7 of you or whoever else wanted to be, we could be signed up and you could get their information. For the first year's $25, and the next year it would be $125, but unlimited number of people could serve.
I was going to say, do we have $25? But I know we do. Which TIF, where would you take it out of?
Well, I think you could take out any of the TIFs, couldn't we, or share it? I would make a motion that we fund this and make sure that it's funded in a way that both Matt and Tony can attend, because that connection downstate, you're sitting there talking about grants and trying to get money for different things and connections with people downstate. It's not going to happen unless we're close to them. So I would highly recommend that we do that.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
You bet.
Next item on the agenda is the resolution of LaPorte County Redevelopment Commission supporting development, redevelopment, acquisition, repurposing of certain property within the Kingsbury Industrial Park Economic Development Area, KIP. Matt, would you like to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We've been approached by several different types of entities that are looking for larger chunks of property And what we know is that as a redevelopment commission, we have the ability to procure property from time to time. We have the ability, I mean, we can request a change of zoning and some aggregation of different property. And the purpose of the resolution is to get behind an effort to get significant parcels of property with specific types of topography to be utilized for development and redevelopment. And obviously, I guess not obviously, the purpose of any of this activity is to produce investment and generate taxes. And as an entity, the LaPorte County Redevelopment Commission was signatory to those efforts when you created the TIF there. And this is a reaffirming that process, and also gets more specific to our desire to aggregate property and get our hands on some of it for the purposes of development. And that's the purpose of the resolution.
Great. What's your pleasure?
Leave anything out?
No, I think that's correct. And then I'll, under other business, want to address a potential engagement by the commission that I think could enhance this as well. So,
Great.
Make a motion to go forward with the resolution pending review.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, as part of this resolution and the discussion that is ongoing with a developer and potential use, which is a particularly exciting use for the property, among the acreage that is being considered is acreage owned by another public entity. It happens to be a state entity. As the commission knows, that can be fairly challenging in terms of working conveyance, negotiations on that type of thing, what terms and conditions that could be potentially conveyed over. I'd like authority to bring on co-counsel. The firm that we've used in the past from the county is a fellow by the name of Alex Brugenschmidt, down in Noblesville, whose specialty is in land conveyance, and particularly not only has he advised the auditor's office extensively over the years on tax sales, but he is particularly expert at working the issue of conveyance by public entities, by and between public entities. For instance, we're utilizing his services in connection with the prospective sale of the county home property. We've been directed by the council to move expeditiously, and we are, in fact, with a plan to put the county home property, essentially it's the county home, the adjoining 5 acres, excluding the county barn, up for sale, and to do so in a way that meets with the statutory requirements. As the commission can understand, there are considerable statutory issues that have to be dealt with. It is a highly specialized area of law, and so I'd like authority from the commission. Generally, we've been given authority when we bring in co-counsel. We try to bring in co-counsel based on their specialty, their area of expertise. With this particular issue that we're dealing with at KIP, we think we benefit by having Alex's firm on board, because there are some issues of under what terms could the Redevelopment Commission potentially acquire this property from another public entity? Can it be divested for less than market value to another government entity? Can we do a public-private partnership or a licensing agreement? Are there other financing vehicles involved? And so I'd like authority to bring on Alex's firm, which the county has dealt with extensively, to work with us on this prospective deal.
I mean, I do have
a question.
Go ahead and I'll follow up.
My question is very simple. Where are we going with cost? I understand the need, but this can't be an open checkbook also, and I know you know that as well as everybody.
I absolutely do.
I just like from my own...
Absolutely, and what we can do is regularly report to the commission on costs and update where we're at on status. Rogenschmidt's firm, as I say, has dealt with the county extensively. Like I said, they help us on tax sale issues. They're going to be involved, and he is pretty good at watching fees. I mean, it's it's a smaller firm, but it's a very specialized boutique firm that deals exclusively with these kind of issues. And so we get the benefit of that knowledge and expertise without the $500 or $450 an hour kind of billing that sometimes you'll see from some of the largest firms in the state. Sometimes there are no options other than using one of the largest firms in the state, as we've had to with B&T, as you know, on some of the issues at KIP. But this particular unique issue, and this is really, frankly, involving several hundred acres out there, where it's a public entity that owns it. Under what circumstances are we able to negotiate a deal to get those in redevelopment's hands to allow this other development to occur? So if you'd give me that authority, I'm duty bound, I think, to keep you updated on where we're at in terms of costs and fees. But I think the project, it's an exciting project if this thing comes together, and we really need the assistance in trying to get this property deeded over from the public entity, which paid a considerable amount for this property back in 2001. So we've got some other issues involved, and that's why I'm suggesting I think it'd be very helpful to have them on board.
I guess I don't have an issue with that at all. I guess I'd just like a little bit more information on the big scope of the project. In other words, are we bringing somebody on a little bit too soon?
This is critical at this point. Frankly, the rest of the deal hinges on our getting control of the property. We have put together, without, again, I'm under a non-disclosure agreement. But the Office of Community and Economic Development. But what we can indicate is that this deal has the potential of adding considerable assessed valuation to KIP, and getting a hold of before the rest of the deal can proceed. And frankly, there are three parties to this deal. There's the private developer, there's another party, and at the appropriate time, we can even meet an executive session when we get close to moving forward, so that the commission can be apprised in exec on as you know, before any purchase of land transaction. It's one of the exceptions under open door, so we can meet in exec at that point to more fully describe it. But the critical first tipping point is getting some handle on this land and the terms under which this particular agency might be willing to convey the property over to the Redevelopment Commission.
There's no question. I think the piece of property, Matt, is that the one you showed me in your office we talked about?
Yes, sir.
It's probably the most valuable piece of property that the county could own if it had some rights to it, number one. It'd been nice if we'd have had that property instead of the other.
Isn't that the truth?
I understand the difficulty that you had when you put the deal together a few years back. I would say that I would certainly be for it. I think if the county can gain some ownership of that property, it would be a very good thing. Even if the deal that you're working on now doesn't quite go through, it would make sense to me to have that piece of property, because we sit here and we try to put these deals together with many different people that are out in that area. How nice it would be if we had our own property that we could make a deal ourselves if we had to, even if it was to fall through. The only other thing I would say is, Shaw, we're just concerned with the high attorney costs and so forth. Do the best you can to keep that down as low as you can.
And what you may want to do, and it may give the commission more of a comfort level, perhaps a not to exceed on the initial authorization.
That would be ideal.
I think that even if you were to impose a not to exceed of $5,000 for any legal connected with Mr. Brugenschmidt's firm, I'm very comfortable with that. I think it'll get us well along.
I'm good with that. Do we need to make a motion for that?
Yes.
Yeah.
You want a motion right now so you can proceed?
That would be great.
I'll make that motion, not to exceed $5,000 to hire the special attorney to look into the matter at the KIP.
I'll second that now that I have a number.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you, Chairman. May I point out there's another legal firm working with the private developer that has spent, there's a private developer working with another legal firm that has spent substantial dollars to date to get to this point. And without those efforts, we wouldn't be bothering with this discussion. So,
Great.
but I agree with Commissioner Core. value to us as an agency to getting an opportunity to do development on specific parts of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
Mr. President, once again, this just shows you the value of having someone like Matt that understands the process and puts this stuff together and brings this stuff before us. This is the first time I've heard any of this, and I've been on this commission a long time. So, Matt, I commend you for that. Keep up the good work and keep going.
Thank you, and I want to commend you, and I know it was a little bit before Tony came on, but the work out there at North Point, the old legal warehouse, that was, I think I wound up staying out there till like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, getting a tour on the old place. But no, you guys did a great job, and what a great partner North Point is with LaPorte County and Dollar General. They're very pleased with talking with them, the response they got from LaPorte County and how friendly LaPorte County was. So I think maybe we're turning a corner,
it's nice to hear.
Making things better. So
by the way, they Dollar General also did remit their tax abatement fee of $16,000. So last year, just so the commissioners are aware, and it's more of a council thing, the total amount that was contributed by companies that applied for and received abatement was over $80,000 that went directly into the Economic Development Fund. So it helps. Every little bit helps.
Absolutely.
Right?
I'm going to mark that down. Great job. Great job.
80,000 last next year.
Just great. Is there any other?
One more second.
Okay.
One more under other business. The commission chair asked me to look into what is potential for a new economic development area. So here is the map of the would-be 35-8094 economic development plan. So, as you can see, there is a substantive problem. Not a problem, it's just not developable. It's just not going to happen. So what I asked Mike over in the real estate department to do was pull together this map, and I have certainly the accompanying property owners. And there are some areas that are intriguing to me as a development professional. So this over here by an airport, makes sense to me, right? This makes sense to me. This makes sense to me. All this would have to be connected in a logical fashion. We would have to sit down like we do in Michigan City and make sure water, sewer, and all that. So we're not running into the 421-94 challenge.
And there's water right there on the corner of 20 and Mirror, so 600.
Water, I'm sure.
I would say
Also
that
smaller.
my recommendation is let's keep reviewing. We need to pull together some more tangible information to make sure what of these sites are served with water and sanitary. I don't want to get into a discussion about trying to get another extension when we already have an extension challenge at 3089. We have an extension challenge at 35, 8094. So I know Michigan City's doing stuff. When I say stuff at the airport, you can understand they're trying to expand the runway to do more fixed-based operator activity.
They got the approval for that. So.
Yeah, that's people with money that fly big jets and likely to hang out. So we like their money too. And certainly the development potential around it. But anyway,
Definitely.
We just asked for it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Now, there's a pocket version of that?
Yeah. For your eyes. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Sounds great.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.